It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, November 23rd. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is really thinking this team is broken, Russ.
Yeah, it's broken.
We got a lot of injury news to talk about, and we'll do that and get to your mailbag questions coming up next.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with prospect expert Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Flyers or Instagram at Locked On Flyers as well. That's where you'll keep up to date with our episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube. If you want to see our facial expressions as we react to all of this news, you can do so over there. Russ, we had been waiting for news on Scott Laughton and Travis Konecny. We got that news, and it's not great, Bob, as
No.
the GIF says.
Yeah.
Scott Laughton, obviously, we were concerned about concussion, and they put him on IR. I would call it a TBD for him.
Yeah, because you just don't know with that.
Right. I mean, they haven't really said anything about it being anything other than that. So it's just going to be what it is. And
Everybody's different, so yeah.
We learned that Travis Konecny, a upper body injury. Again, we kind of knew that based on the play with his.
Oh no, we all knew.
Yeah. That estimate is 10 to 14 days. Wade Allison, we got more details on that. It's a hip pointer oblique muscle strain. That's 2 to 3 weeks. I think
that one, I want to for that one. 2 to 3 weeks for the double injury like that with a guy who has a history of that area not being great.
That's a 4 to 6.
Yeah.
I think so. But, stranger things have happened.
Sure.
Speaking of stranger things have happened, Russ, the thing happened that you have been asking about for quite a while now is that Cam Atkinson was in Voorhees.
He was. I was talking to him
at the training facility.
Yeah, I was talking to him at the game. He accused us of hiding the popcorn because we were standing right near it. It was pretty funny. But it is good to see him, and it was. Look, it's good for everybody to see these guys there, and you kind of, wish that was happening a little more. I do think it helps camaraderie, even within the team, to kind of see these guys a bit more. Now, Cam they had seen because they had seen him in Columbus, but I'm just saying as an example. So, again, we have no idea what his injury is.
Right.
I'm assuming it's something like his neck or something like that. He's not really on the ice, and he's week to week. Okay, so they changed it from month to month to week. So now, I'm thinking, okay, December 15th is the best case scenario to see him. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we shall see. We still obviously have Couturier, JVR, and Bobby Brink on the injured list, and supposedly they're on track with the original estimates for their return. So for JVR, that would be probably the second week of December we're looking at.
Yeah.
Bobby Brink is late December. I would say maybe right after Christmas is the
I would
earliest.
wait until after Christmas, and I would send him directly to Lehigh. I would not have him in the NHL.
Yes. Absolutely.
He needs to play a few weeks in Lehigh before you worry about what you're going to do with him,
Yeah, and then Couturier is the last one on the list.
But Brink is skating, so that's a good sign.
The new year.
He has been skating after practice, so.
Yeah, that is a good sign. So while it's bad right now. I do think there's hope for a bunch of these guys returning. We'll see what shape they're in. Obviously don't want to count on anything, but I think that, for the time being, they're things can always get worse, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Like for a Flyers fan, you just want JVR to be healthy at the trade deadline so you can trade him and get assets. You want
Mhm.
like you have to look at it that way. Like this is how you have to start looking at some of these things. So some of these guys have to get healthy so they can replace these other guys. So like if a Brink is on this timeline, plays 2-3 weeks in Lehigh, by the time they're getting close to deciding who they might trade or whatever, maybe Brink does come back up with the team and can start playing with the Flyers. He does have an injury history, so you have to take it, day by day with him. But still, those are good things. Allison, honestly, I'm not counting on him. He could have another bad hit, another slip, whatever, and be out again, unfortunately. So this is, unfortunately, this is the kind of thing it's been with him. Couturier looked pretty good. So I would say I believe the estimate on him because it's long and it's
Right.
been very calculated and understated, and I think that's the right way to do it with Couturier based on all that's happened. So I think that that's fair with him. Konechny will definitely be back. I mean, that's not a big issue.
Right.
And Atkinson, it's just unfortunately with Atkinson, it's the great unknown because again, week to week turned into month to month. Now it's back to week. You hope it stays that way, but that is the great unknown.
Yeah, the Flyers could certainly use a Cam
Oh,
Atkinson right
absolutely.
now. I think not only for his skill and the fact that he's a shooter, right? But also I think that things with
Speed.
Torts are and things with Torts, right? I feel like
Yeah.
he could be a bridge that is much needed right now. I think that there's a lot of frustration on the player's side. There's
Oh yeah.
frustration on his side. And, I think everybody's sort of in a like it is what it is mode right now. And I feel like Atkinson could help that a little bit.
No, he could because he's a generally upbeat guy, upbeat personality. He was last night when we saw him. Like that's the pop and really the beauty of Cam Atkinson. That's what's really good about him. The bad thing is that I don't think this coach is doing anything out of the ordinary to try and get his team out of this funk. I think he's just simply replacing players. I don't know if it's anything more than that. And that's the part that kind of gets me because again, with the teams that you're going to be facing, you can't have Zach McEwen on the second line. You can't have certain things. Again, you probably shouldn't even have Nick Sealer in there. You probably should make another call up too. But like, you've got to start looking at it like, hey, how slow is my team? Because again,
Right.
Calgary possessed that puck for a long time. And even if you're a good forechecking team, you still got to be able to catch up to guys to forecheck them. And the odd man rushes, those kinds of things are going to be prevalent against teams like Washington and Philly, and Pittsburgh, who may not be the greatest teams in the league, but have the kind of veterans that look for things like that, mistakes like that.
Yeah. I think the other part of it though is that you look at him putting Kevin Hayes at the wing, right? And it clearly didn't work.
No, it
And they
weakens the whole
moved
team.
right, and so that he moved him back to center for the 3rd period, and
Yeah,
to me, that's a good sign that he's gonna try some things that maybe don't make a lot of sense, but he'll figure it out pretty quickly when it doesn't work. So,
yeah.
that's where I have, hope in what he can do as a coach, that he really
Mhm.
is quite observant on that front.
But as far as the staff, to me, the staff is under the microscope because PK and power play stink. They just
Yeah,
stink. And
yeah.
they brought in new guys for this, and they've not impressed me. I'll be honest.
Well, there's so much to talk about with this team. We have another team to talk about. That is the Washington Capitals, and that is who the Flyers are facing tonight. And they're having their own problems. And we will get to that next.
Today's episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens. I started using Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health, more energy, optimized immune system, and hated taking pills and vitamins. And I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It costs you less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Athletic Greens contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you get your podcasts. Russ, the Washington Capitals are off to a real rough start. They are actually below the Flyers in the standings in the Metro. They are on a 4-game losing streak, so not as many as the Flyers, but still significant nonetheless. It has been to tough teams, though. They lost to the Panthers, Avs, Lightning, and then they lost in a shootout to the Blues, who struggled earlier but have kind of turned things around as of late. So they've had a tough stretch of games so far. And I think the biggest issue for them right now is that they're having trouble finishing. I think they're
Yeah.
getting shots, but they're just not finishing. They're second in the NHL overall in percent of unblocked shots that miss the net, according
Yeah,
to
that's
Money
bad.
Puck. And that's huge.
That's huge. Although we could go back and just look at history and say Ovechkin seems to really play well against the Flyers, which he does.
Mhm.
And they do have a better goalie now. They do. It's not, it's not the best situation, but it's a better goaltending situation than it was last year. And at some point they're going to make a push at least to try and get to be a decent team. So you figure a home game, this is where you kind of want to do it. I did ask somebody who I know who covers the team about Laviolette, and because his contract is close to being up, probably is safe. But that's where you kind of look at it and see, does he have one more last gasp in him with this team to try and get them going the right way? I like what they've done with Sonny Milano. I thought
Yeah.
that was a really good addition. I know everybody in Philly wanted to get him, but there was no way Torts was going to work with him again because it didn't work out the last time. But that has turned into some offense, which they desperately needed. They did just send Connor McMichael down, which again, that was sort of up and down. So, right now they're in an in-between stage, but they still have a lot of veterans that could hurt you.
Yeah, the Caps are just like a smidge better than the Flyers right now on your basic offensive metrics like expected goals and such. So I feel like they're actually on a decently level playing field on that front. But where I think the Flyers could take advantage of the Caps is on the defensive side. The Caps defense is just atrocious right now. They have a couple of good offensive defensemen, but it's the defensive defenseman side of things that is a problem for them right now. They still have John Carlson and such, but it's just like that is a huge problem for them right now. They can't hold leads in games at all. And I think you mentioned Ovechkin being trouble for the Flyers. I think ultimately the biggest to do for the Flyers is don't get suckered into penalties and leave him open at his spot, because his struggle on the power play this year so far has been because teams have been able to prevent the pass getting to him in the first place. And so that's kind of what the Flyers need to do if they get stuck on the PK or if he's out there in general. Just, make sure you're covering the people who are going to pass the puck to him.
Yeah, the Flyers had 4 penalties last night, and if you put the Capitals, on the power play 4 times with Carlson and Ovechkin, I don't care how bad they've been, they're going to get a goal or two. They're going to. And so I think you're right. That is really the key to this game is try and cover Ovechkin 5-on-5 and not get goaded into penalties, not take stupid ones. The other defenseman who I do like on Washington is Martin Favari. He's come of age a
Yeah.
bit, and so he's pretty good. But you're right. As a whole, the unit's not good. And I think the Flyers really need to, and again, to me, this is coaching. They really need to concentrate on how they expect to get their puck possession because, like, I was watching Zach McEwen, and he would just throw the puck into the corner, but he would throw it close to where a Calgary guy was, and there was no way a Flyers guy was going to beat him to a foot race to start getting the puck going the other way and for them to get the puck out of their own end. And it's like, to me, if you're going to dump it in, you've got to dump it in with somebody either streaking in there or you know that you could go get the puck because, again, you're just giving up possession. I would have thought by now, and maybe because Torts ignores part of the analytics department, puck possession is a super important thing. It's not the answer to everything, but you're going to do more good things than bad things most of the time if you have the puck. And the Flyers still don't have the puck enough.
Well, and you can't shoot unless you have the puck, right? So
Yeah.
that's your basics right
Yeah.
there. We are also going to see our old friend Nick Ave-Kubel, who
Yep.
was picked up
He just
by
got
the
his ring
Caps.
too.
Yeah, they when they played the Avalanche recently,
Yes.
he got his Stanley Cup ring, but he finds himself on the Washington Capitals now, and so that'd be nice to see him. I guess I always
Well, he'll
feel
be
bad
chippy,
about
don't
that
worry.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's going to be chippy in this game. Like, he's going to be. So he'll probably start up with somebody. That's fine.
probably McEwen.
Yeah, probably. I could see this game being close for a while, but again, I do worry about the Ovechkin factor. There's going to be a time where he breaks out. You don't know when it's going to be. See, the Flyers don't have an Ovechkin type where you say, all right, look, if all else fails, we'll just keep trying to get him the puck. He can keep hammering the puck, and maybe it'll go in. Like, that's the thing that they're lacking right now. That's the ace in the hole for the Capitals if the game is close, if Darcy Kepner's, keeping it close.
Right. Yeah, and their goaltending is fine. It's not stellar, but it's not
No,
bad either. So I think, that's kind of a non-issue as far as the game strategy goes. But
but
yeah,
they're
don't get
fast.
suckered.
Capitals have speed.
Yeah, so it's like don't get suckered into penalties. Make sure you're driving guys to the outside. And I think, all things being equal, if the Flyers can score 3 goals, they should win the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very
It's a
funny.
tall order, but
It is a tall order, but it is true. Like, a lot of times, the race to 3 goals is an important one, and if you can get there first, you generally can win the game. The problem that I worry about is that the Flyers get there first, holding a lead is not their forte.
that is a big issue, but, like I said, the Caps have struggles with that too,
Yeah, this
so
could be a high-scoring game. It could
yeah,
be.
it could be a very low scoring game or a very high scoring game. I somehow
Right.
don't see it anywhere in the middle.
No, I don't either, but again, this is just we're gonna see now. I mean, the Flyers should be mad to the point where they come out of this game, starting this game like gangbusters, coming out of the gate, super hot, super fast, do the best you can. And that's the thing. If I'm Torts, I got to start my fastest players. I got to try and set the tone for this game because, again, speed's been a problem the last couple of games in these last couple of, and in these losses. So you got to get all, you in the past, I know the Flyers have had like 10-game losing streaks, 10-game winning streaks, that kind of stuff. That's not sustainable. And this is one where you worry about. You just don't want it to get worse because you don't want the morale of the team to get bad because then with this kind of coach who could be volatile at times, you don't want that volatility to start dialing up on Torts.
That is a very salient point indeed. All right. Well, hopefully the Flyers can get somewhere versus the Capitals tonight. We'll have a lot of questions, I'm sure, coming out of that game. And you all had a lot of questions. We will get to those in our mailbag next. Russ, our mailbag this week is chock full of some really
That's
good
full.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sam Wisner on Twitter wanted to know with Lazinski's goal, does this solidify him staying in Philly or could he go back to the Phantoms?
Yeah, Sam does a great job of covering
She
Phantoms
does.
prospects and the Phantoms. And I wish I could tell you that goal helped him in the great lexicon of things, but I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is it helps him stay up for another week, and that's good. I think he has done other things to keep him up there already, so I would hope that this keeps him up. But I'm not 100% certain yet. But he is filling a role, and you hope that he's the best guy to fill that role. As an example, I would send down Patrick Brown and a New York Minute before I would send down Tanner Lisinski if it were me.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and, hopefully he just keeps trending in the right direction and doesn't make too many mistakes. I think as long as he doesn't make mistakes, he'll have a shot at it. Will via email asks, I've been wondering about how much authority Fletcher still has with the team as opposed to when Clark or Homer were the GM. It feels like Torts has more say over the day to day roster, call ups, and demotions. Is that true? And is that just the nature of Torts?
He definitely has a lot of pull when it comes to call ups, and demotions. He, I would say, more pull than Fletcher with that. Fletcher's still making the trades and making the phone calls, but he is trying to work in concert with Tortorella to get guys that he wants and situations that he wants. But right now, this is probably the weakest from a power standpoint that Fletcher has been in the time as a Flyers GM. So John has a long contract, and he does have the power.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that because his is the voice we hear most often, he's not, Chuck Fletcher is not as vocal as other GMs are. He has press conferences, but I think they're fewer and further between than some other GMs or other GMs that make, more regular comments to the media. And so when all the voices you hear are coming from Torts, then I think that's where the perceived power is.
Yep.
All right, I apologize because I don't know what, commenter this comes from, but it's stuck in my mind and I wanted to talk about it. A commenter over on YouTube, suggested that perhaps we should do the Nick Sealer forward experiment, but do it with Cam York instead. And I was just curious, Russ, about your thoughts on this because I think if you're gonna do it, Cam York is a better option than Nick Sealer, but I still don't like doing that right now.
No, but York is at a point where he's played enough hockey that I think he could handle it. So, sure, would I want Cam York doing that? Yeah, because he's got a good offensive mind, and I probably would guess that somewhere in his life before he was a defenseman, he may have been a forward. I've interviewed him a bunch. I'm kind of thinking he was, but I can't say for sure. So I do like it. I don't understand having a guy like Sealer up there. It's like all you're doing is adding more defense, and all you're doing is adding another shot that misses the net a lot.
Yeah, I think that, in my perfect world in the future, we have positionless skaters in hockey and we go back to maybe having a rover like in the old
Oh
days.
gosh.
But, I really like the idea of people kinda going back and forth between playing offensively and defensively, and you kind of suit what you're doing out on the ice to what the situation is, as opposed to having a hard and fast position.
Hmm.
Cam York could be a rover. I think he could. But in the way that this team is structured, I don't know that it would work right now, but I think he could do it in a perfect scenario.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Steve from our email inbox wants to know what can this team do better that is possible with the personnel that we have.
Well, I do think bringing up Jackson Cates is a positive because you have the Cates brothers, and you definitely want to try and see what you have in a brother combination because it has
We
worked.
talked about that on yesterday's show,
We
very
did,
specifically.
and because we've seen it work. We've seen it work in hockey history before. You might as well give it a shot while Jackson's playing his best hockey. In fact, Noah's already playing well. They played together a bunch before, and they both learned how to play at the same school. So it's like this is, to me, it's a no brainer. What else could they do? They could still change up their defense a little bit if they wanted to. I mean, York coming up would not be a bad thing. Um, I know they want to give him time down there, but I think he's kind of proven now that he could play in the AHL. He could do what he wants. He's doing what you want. He is playing better away from the puck. He is scoring. Like, I think if you bring him up, your lineup is only going to get better. He would instantly replace Sealer. And to me, that's an upgrade. Again, if somebody gets hurt, fine, put Nick Sealer in. But again, that's the way you get better. That's the way you get better puck movement. That's the way you get a little bit more offense. I think we've seen that. And again, we didn't see it out of Sanheim in yesterday's game, but you get a little more push from the blue line. It helps your offense immensely in this league. And they need it in the worst way because let's face it, D'Angelo's done an okay job, but he's not been like Shane Gostisbehere of old or a really tremendous offensive defenseman. He's just been okay.
Yeah, I think, that's where I would go with it is to really kind of work on the defensive side of things and
Yeah.
make some small adjustments. Yeah, I still think Cam York maybe needs another week or two
Okay.
before I would call him up, but at the same time, I really would have kept Zamula in the lineup and given him a shot at
Yeah. I
it
mean, he
as
didn't play
well.
since November 5th. It was terrible.
Yeah, I just feel like there's some energy waiting in the wings on the defense that isn't currently out there on the
Yeah.
ice that would make a huge difference. And I that would be my first step, and that only helps you in everything because it sets up your offense and it prevents additional shots if they can help prevent zone entries or more effective zone entries from the opponent. So I think, yeah, your best offense is a good defense, as they say.
Yeah, no question. I mean, this is a league made for offensive defensemen. It is.
Yeah. All right, last question. I want to get to Susan Lowe's question because Susan has been our ask really good basic hockey questions
Mhm.
listener and I love them. So every time she sends one in, I want to include it cuz we always say everybody can learn and she wanted
Oh
to know
yeah.
about maintenance days. Does each player have a set number of them? Are they considered a day off? Are they specifically a recovery day from a minor injury?
No, there's a certain amount of maintenance days that the PA says you have to have as a player, and
Yeah,
then
they're in the
after
CBA.
they're in the CBA, but then after that, it's a recovery. So it's not so much like it's a day off, like, hey, I'm taking a day off. It's not that. It's like I'm taking a day off because this ankle's been bothering me the whole road trip, and this is the only chance I'm going to get to rest it before the next 3 games. Because the Flyers are on a unbelievable tear right now as far as games. I think they only have like 2 days off in like the next, I don't know, 21 games or something. It's something ridiculous
Mhm.
like that. So you're going to see some maintenance days during that. Like they're not practicing today. It's not great that they're not practicing because I still think you should always have an optional, but they're not practicing. So whatever.
Yeah, I think that with maintenance days, for some guys, it's related to a specific thing that they need to rest. Some people have a chronic
Mhm.
condition. And so them taking a maintenance day every certain number of days is really helpful to keep them in shape for the rest of the season. Some of it is for specific acute things, like you said, like somebody twists an ankle or whatever. But yeah, there is a specific number of them that everybody gets in the collective bargaining agreement. So everybody has to take them at some
Right.
point, and usually they're on practice day, like optional practice days, so that it kind of dovetails with that in terms of missing regular practices.
Yeah, I mean, I take a maintenance 2 days every weekend on this show because I talk too much.
Well, you say good things though, Russ.
I
So
appreciate that.
I appreciate it at any rate. All right. That will do it for today's show. We'll be back again tomorrow with our recap of the game against Washington. We're going to talk prospects, so much more. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want your question answered on the show, you can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can comment on Instagram at that same handle. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and their take of the day. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.